Hey, just in time for the holidays, what if you didn't have to worry about any of that credit card debt? If you're feeling stuck making the minimum payments and you don't want to have to put Christmas on a credit card, we can help at savewithconrad.com. We routinely help our listeners save hundreds of dollars a month. Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad, the mortgage guy, and we are live at 83weeks.com. We greatly appreciate everyone checking in and hanging out with us. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications bell. We have got a lot to cover today. Before we talk about what happened 30 years ago and what happened this last week, Eric, I want to talk about what's happening next Thursday. Thanksgiving is right around the corner. What's on the docket for you and Mrs. B this year for Turkey Day?
Well, this is going to be an unusual one because this will be the first Thanksgiving in my family's history where I will not be there for Thanksgiving. In fact, I'm going to be in Chicago for Real American Freestyle number 3. The event is Saturday, November 29th, but because of all the pre-production and the planning and pre-tapes and things that go into it, I arrive in Chicago on Tuesday night and I stay through Monday. So I'll be in Chicago flying solo for Thanksgiving, and Mrs. B will be here, and Cody, and she's got her sister and her family all coming over. And we have some local friends that Lori's become very familiar with and acquainted with. So Lori will have a Thanksgiving here in Montana, and her significant other will be having a Thanksgiving in Los Angeles. So the Bischoff clan is spread out throughout the North American continent.
Is this the first time that everybody's separate ever on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it's weird because honestly, I always say, that's my favorite holiday. Like 4th of July to me is really special for a lot of reasons. Obviously, Christmas is its own unique holiday that brings with it so much more than just the holiday. But Thanksgiving has always kind of been my second favorite, really. Because it's just family getting together and it's food. There's no other, it's not gift giving as the dominant reason, for the season, so to speak. It's just being thankful, being grateful, celebrating with close friends and family in a relaxed way. I love that. And I'm going to miss it. And, for me and my, growing up, November, Thanksgiving was also associated very closely with hunting season. So a lot of times, my friends and I, or my family and I, would get up early Thanksgiving morning when it's still dark and there's still 3 feet of snow on the ground and go out pheasant hunting so that we had pheasants for Thanksgiving dinner. Yes, we did that. I'll miss certain aspects of that, but at the same time, I'll be 71 years old in May. I am blessed with the opportunity to be surrounded by a bunch of 30-somethings who are so passionate about what they're doing, and the whole team at Real American Freestyle, including all of the athletes, and everybody's on a mission. And for me, at this stage of my life, to be invited to that party and be a part of that journey is just so freaking awesome that I don't actually mind giving up at Thanksgiving.
Well, I'm excited for Real American Freestyle. If you're like me and you're not going to be in the Chicago area, you can watch it on Fox Nation. It's a great app, and I got to tell you, it's a whole heck of a lot more affordable than I'm used to because it feels like you're getting a PLE included with it. It's like $7 or $8. But tickets are on sale now if you are in the Chicago area on next Saturday, coming up the 29th. It's going to be a pretty badass show. Tickets are on sale now at realamericanfreestyle.com. And Eric, when I take a look at the lineup, it feels like there's more names and more celebrity attached to this event than either of the first 2 events. Is that fair to say?
Well, it is certainly our 2, co-main events, rich in UFC, MMA history. Michael Chandler, Chad Mendez. That's going to be a tremendous matchup. Of course, both of them, big names in the UFC, lots of success in mixed martial arts in general. But like so many of the athletes, we talked about this from day one when you first interviewed me and you said, what are you excited about Real American Freestyle? Why do you think it'll have a chance to succeed? When up until now, nobody that's ever tried making amateur wrestling or freestyle wrestling a successful television product. And I think I told you then, certainly shortly thereafter, that the opportunity I see here is the UFC has done such a phenomenal job of edutaining the audience. Meaning, if I use this analogy in the past, I'll go through it fast. If you walked into a bar 15 years ago, pulled 10 guys off the bar, said, okay, I want you 10 to come outside. I got $10,000 in cash in this bag. If any one of you can tell me what a rear naked choke is, I'll give you the cash. Chances are you'd walk out with your cash. Nobody could take it from you. Now you go into that same bar and pull 10 guys, 18 to 49 years old, off the back of a bar stool, pull them outside, say, here's 10 grand in this bag. If you can tell me what a rear naked choke is, you can have the money in this bag. Not only would probably 7 of those 10 guys be able to tell you what a rear naked choke is, 4 of them could execute it. That's what I mean by edutain. UFC has done a great job of that. And part of that edutainment is the audience realizing for the first time, really, that wrestling, freestyle wrestling, is such an important component of the entire MMA buffet, if you will. Sure, there's striking, sure, there's karate, there's jujitsu, there's variations of all of the above. There's a million different styles, right? Everybody's got their own little take on things. But at the very foundation, it comes down to your ability to physically control your opponent. And nothing lends itself to that aspect of MMA more than freestyle wrestling. So now that the audience is getting entertained and they see this emerging new sport called Real American Freestyle, yeah, it's a combat sport, but it's different than, right? Different than, here we go again, UFC or MMA in general. It's similar, but it's different than. And it's interesting because it's a component of so much of what people love at MMA. So I just think it's a perfect storm, Conrad. The timing, I don't believe in coincidence. We've been blessed with this opportunity. I know I have. And I think we've been blessed with absolutely perfect timing.
Well, I'm excited for Real American Freestyle number 3. I'm a big UFC guy from way back. So when I saw so many names littered all over the card, I thought this might actually be the biggest one. And of course, if you're a wrestling fan, the traditional pro wrestling fan, that's the same day as Survivor Series and a lot of great football games. This is going to be the best Thanksgiving in a long time for guys, because not only do you get your fill of all your family favorites on Thursday, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, man, it's like a smorgasbord of sports all weekend, isn't it?
It sure is. We're talking a lot about, the MMA involvement, the crossover between UFC and Real American Freestyle. But let's not forget, we're putting on some amazing, purely freestyle matches for, with elite world-class level athletes that haven't yet competed or possibly never will compete in MMA or UFC in particular. Kennedy Blades, she was supposed to be in our first event because of some obscure, new NIL rules, and because she's part of the NCAA, we hit a little technical speed bump, so to speak. Well, we've been able to overcome that, and Kennedy will be on the show. This young lady, 20-something years old, early 20s, college student, one of the most poised, athletically gifted human beings I've ever met. And, oh, by the way, she looks like she could walk off the cover of Vogue magazine. She's absolutely stunningly beautiful. And her gimmick is, because, yeah, even freestyle wrestlers have gimmicks, hers is throwing women on their head. She's like known for her belly to back suplex, and she's got like long legs. So when she decides she's going to hit you with a belly to back, it's a long ride. It's not over quickly. It's like you're going up. Oh my gosh, I had no idea there was this many lights in that ceiling. Oh, there's a blue light, there's a yellow light. And then you finally hit the ground on your head. That's Kennedy Blades. In fact, if you go back and you Google some images of her from the NCAA championships, I think there you'll find some of the most amazing belly to back suplex, just action shots you'll ever find in freestyle wrestling. She's great. Bo Bassett. Bo Bassett is, I think he's 18 now. He might have just
19. He's 19.
19 now, right? Still in high school. We had to get his parents' permission for him to compete as a professional. Is that awesome? He's
unbelievable.
The kid is so unbelievable, and he's stepping into the ring with a seasoned vet, Darion Caldwell, not only a phenomenal, well-credentialed amateur wrestler, but again a Bellator, former UFC champion with a lot of scar tissue to go with it, and fight experience and wisdom, going against this 19-year-old freestyle wrestling phenom that I think probably is going to be one of the biggest names in freestyle wrestling in decades to come.
Man, I can hear the enthusiasm in your voice. I remember, and this was not on the program, but you and I did a quick call about something else. But I could tell when I called you, for whatever the purpose of my call was, you were in a good mood. And sometimes you can hear, as I like to say, people grinning through the phone. Like you can't see them, but you just know there's a smile on their face. I could hear it in your voice. So I said, it sounds like you're in a good mood today. And you almost cut me off. And you never do that. So I know you were excited, and you started rattling off how excited you were to have met and spent time with Kennedy Blades. Mm-hmm. And I knew you had really seen a lot in her. You were excited for her to be on the first one. The idea that we're finally getting to see that now at Real American Freestyle 3. I just wanted to be clear to everybody. This is Eric being very genuine, because these are private conversations. He's not shilling or selling. You're just this enthusiastic about it. And I've never asked you this off air, and I feel bad for asking you this on air. I know you were blessed to have a lot of fun and a lot of success in pro wrestling. But if this opportunity would have existed back then, this feels like it's more of your real personality, given your amateur sports background yourself. Do you think this would have been more fun? Like if you could have been on the ground floor developing a UFC or an RAF or whatever in 1991 instead of WCW? Would that have appealed to you?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, because what really appealed to me the most is just learning the business of the wrestling business and the television business, which it's a part of, obviously. But keep in mind, back then I had no experience. I had no knowledge. And getting involved in wrestling gave me the opportunity over the course of time to gain experience in just about every facet of the wrestling business. Whether it was initially as a salesperson, I was selling advertising, essentially. I was selling television. I was selling a television program, but I was selling it based on its ability to deliver ad sales to a network or to a station, independent station. So my first job was selling professional wrestling. And then I got into production just because I was curious. So after hours, I would hang around and learn how to do shit, because to me, it was magic. When I walked into Joe Chupek's edit bay, Polish Joe, as we refer to him, if you ever met him, you know why. Polish Joe would walk into the room. His nose had been there for about 4 minutes before he showed up. But he would walk in that room and he would sit down, in his edit suite, and he would start making magic with all these multicolored buttons. That's how I looked at production. That's how little experience I had. I had never been in an edit bay before. So to me, it was all magic. And I got to learn that just a little bit here, a little bit there, over time. Got to learn how to run a camera. Got to learn how to produce interviews just by watching Vern and Greg do it. Right? Got to learn how to do color and play-by-play. I was taught by one of the very best in the history of it in Vern Gagne. And it was some help from Greg Gagne and Mike Shields and others, but coached into a very important aspect of the professional wrestling business. And then on and on and on and on until eventually I became president. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because the opportunity that I have right now at Real American Freestyle, I wouldn't have been able to contribute anything were it not for all of the experience that I gained in WCW. I would have nothing to offer. I would be another guy that loved amateur wrestling, that thought it would be really cool to see it on TV, but I wouldn't understand how to help make it happen unless I would have had the experience that I gained. So I am absolutely 100% grateful for the opportunity that I have right now. And I wouldn't have wanted it to come at a different time in my life.
Be sure to check out Kennedy Blades. She's going to be challenging for the featherweight championship. That's 150 pounds against Alejandra Rivera. You got a 22-year-old from America versus a 23-year-old from Mexico. The featherweight title for the men will be up for grabs with Real Woods. He's a 25-year-old here from America against Jordan Oliver, who's a 35-year-old from Pennsylvania. Frank Mir's daughter, Bella Mir, is going to be making her debut at 150 pounds for Real American Freestyle. Old school UFC fans will be familiar with Clay Guida. He's representing Izzy Style Wrestling at 43 years old against a young buck at 24 years old, Caden Henschel. But how about,
by the way, check out Caden Henschel. Go over to Instagram. Check out his stuff. Caden Henschel is unbelievable, and he's got social media by the you-know-what, man. He's doing a great job.
The big main event, though, Chad Mendez, Michael Chandler, both UFC stars, 175 pounds. The title is on the line. Real American Freestyle happening next Saturday. Tickets on sale at realamericanfreestyle.com. And of course, you can check it out on Fox Nation. That's what I'm going to do. And you should too. Speaking of something else you should do, is you should go check out our friends at I Hate Steven Singer. You're going to find out why other jewelers truly hate this guy, Steven Singer. Why is that? Well, here's why. Steven Singer has the very best real natural diamond stud earrings in America. You see, by now, everybody knows that gold and diamond prices are crazy right now. Gold is at its highest price in history, but lucky for you, crazy old Steven Singer has locked in his diamond studs at the old prices. And that's why everybody hates him in the jewelry business. They're making more profit than ever, and Steven Singer's still hooking you up with a great deal. You see, Steven has diamond studs available from a 1/4 carat all the way up to 10 carats in total weight. So if you're balling on a budget or it's time to really splurge, Steven Singer is going to give you the most bang for your buck because it's all at the same perfect price as last year, the same incredible value. There truly is no better time to get a pair of diamond studs from Steven Singer Jewelers. Now, let's be honest, this can't last forever, but each pair is eye flawless and near colorless. The lady in your life is going to love them. This is what we're talking about, really beautiful stuff here, just in time for the holidays, right around the corner. And you get the peace of mind of knowing that all of his diamond studs are going to come with his safety silicone back, so you never have to worry about losing them. But maybe best of all, Steven gives you his unbeatable full value lifetime trade-in. So you know that your diamonds are always worth what you paid. Your joker of a jeweler you've been using wouldn't even consider that. And that's the reason all those guys in that industry hate Steven Singer. He backs it up with the best guarantee in the jewelry business. We're talking a full 100-day, 100% no hassle money back guarantee. If you're looking for someone you can trust, if you're looking for someone who's a man of their word, if you want the best deal and you don't want to have to sharpen up your negotiation skills, I mean, leave all that haggling at the car lot. Go get a good deal for your sweetie at I Hate Steven Singer. Get the peace of mind of knowing she's got the right kind of safety back so she won't lose them, and the best guarantee. Who else gives you 100 full day, 100% no hassle money back guarantee? Who else gives you full trade-in value? There's a reason that all these other jewelers hate Steven Singer. There's no gimmicks. There's no games. Plus, he even gives you fast and free shipping. Experience the difference at Steven Singer Jewelers. Online at IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Eric, Steven Singer's been at this for a long time. I got to admit, I've been listening to Howard Stern for like 30 years, and I used to hear him all the time on there with Howard. And Howard would always say, at the other corner, he's giving like physical directions of how to go see Steven Singer. And the idea that he's on our program with the same reputation, with the same guarantee all these years later, it makes it a no-brainer for guys around Christmas, doesn't it?
You know what's cool about this? Now, I've never met Steven Singer, and I hope to meet him someday because he really is the kind of an entrepreneur that I would like to meet. But I bet you, I'm 100% confident that Steven Singer goes to bed every night and is proud of what he's built and proud of his business.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because he made a fortune in the process, which maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I don't know. I would assume he's done okay. But How many times, Conrad, have you and I both heard and been guilty of making major purchases based on emotion?
Everybody does. Yeah.
And we both know, you in particular, because you're a pro, you're a financial pro. You help people with their financial futures in many respects in your mortgage business. So you know what a bad idea it is to make emotional decisions, but we still do it anyway.
Yes.
Steven Singer isn't in that game where most people that are selling, let's face it, the fact that you're buying jewelry represents you walking in the door with love all over you. You love somebody because you're going in there to buy a gift representing that. So you're already in that emotional state. A lot of jewelers will play off of that. They'll take advantage of that. Steven Singer's in a business. It's all numbers. He's going to give you the absolute best price. There's no gamesmanship. There's no illusion of getting a good deal. There's the knowledge and the reality that you're getting the best deal you can get on the piece of jewelry you're looking for with no nonsense. And I bet you that helps him sleep at night.
Go check it out. IHateStevenSinger.com. You're going to be as impressed and happy as Eric and I have been. We've both made purchases from Steven Singer. He's been with us for a long time, and you'll find out why when you go check him out at IHateStevenSinger.com. Eric, I want to talk about something that I don't know that you and I have ever spent any time talking about, but the legendary Bob Caudle passed away. Thankfully, it was peacefully in his sleep overnight, and he leaves behind quite a legacy. He spent like nearly half a century speaking directly to wrestling fans, and he was like our beloved television uncle. So many people listening to this podcast grew up with him being one of the voices of their childhood. He used to introduce the program saying something like, "Hello, wrestling fans." And of course, his signature sign off on the other end, the bookend of the program, "So long for now." He was a news guy. You know, he used to do the weather and a children's show. And then he was recruited in to do television studio wrestling. And before you know it, he became truly the voice of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. And he did it before we fell in love with Tony Schiavone or Jim Ross. But even Ric Flair, if you're watching with us over at 83weeks.com, he immediately took to Twitter when he found out that Bob had passed, and he credited him for allowing him to sharpen his interview skills and helping him become a better promo. And for as long as I've been alive, people have been saying that Ric Flair was one of, if not the best talker in the business. And when that guy gives a tip of the cap saying, "Hey, this guy really helped me develop that," what a legacy he leaves behind. Tony Schiavone did a fabulous tribute to him on Dynamite and suggested that if there's ever a Hall of Fame for wrestling announcers, Bob Caudle should probably go in first. He was Tony Schiavone's hero, and most everybody listening to this knows that Tony Schiavone was effectively the voice of WCW. But this is the guy who inspired Tony Schiavone to want to be Tony Schiavone. What a legacy. Tell us what your experience was with Bob Caudle.
You know, I really didn't get to know Bob at all. I never worked with Bob. We probably crossed paths once or twice in WCW informally, but I never really got to know him. I know of him for decades. I've been hearing of him from people like Tony and Jim Ross and others, and Ric Flair and others from that era, that NWA, Crockett Promotions, pre-WCW era, Florida Championship Wrestling, the southeastern part of the United States. Anybody that was in that territory has told me at one point or another their experience with or respect for Bob Caudle. So I think if you can spend as many years, 50 years, being the voice of a genre in a generation or two at that point, and when your time comes, and you go peacefully with your family, surrounded by a legacy of people who loved you and respected you for your work, I think you've lived a really good life.
Shout out to Mr. Bob Caudle, and so long for now. Let's talk about some other news that I saw this past week, and I'm sure a lot of people are wanting to pick your brain about this. And it wasn't just a social media post. It wasn't just TMZ. Even People Magazine picked this up, Tony. I guess Nick Balea who some people may refer to as Nasty Nick Hogan or whatever the Hulkster used to call him, might be entertaining the idea of professional wrestling. I saw he posted something on social earlier this week in front of a wrestling ring and was thanking people for helping him with a great workout. And everybody sort of stroked their hypothetical Fu Manchu and went, what can you tell us, if anything, about Nick Hogan maybe entertaining the idea of doing a little pro wrestling?
It puts a smile on my face. Little known fact, Nick put his toe in the water with Garrett, with my son. They were both going to Rikishi School in Southern California at the same time. They trained together. I don't remember what year that was anymore. It was a while back, like 2006 or 7 maybe. So I don't remember the date, but it was a while back. And Nick got hurt, took a nasty bump on his shoulder, did some damage, and that kind of derailed him. And of course, life got in the way and all that. I think Nick is going to be in the process of finding out who Nick Balea really is in a very positive way over the next year or two. I think Nick is going to find a lane that he's really, truly comfortable in and is going to pursue for no other reason than he wants to pursue it. Not that he should pursue it, which I think was the case when he put his toe in the water previously. Not that Hulk was not pressuring him, trust me. He supported him, but he was not pushing him in that direction. If anything, he was probably subtly trying to push him away from it. But much like Garrett, Nick was committed, right? But I don't know at that time if he was committed for the right reasons. I think there's a chance now. Nick's a little more mature. He's got some wisdom under his belt now that he didn't have then. And I'm excited for him. I don't want to say I hope he does pursue it, suggesting that I would put any pressure on him, even in a fun way, to do that. I wouldn't. But if he pursues it, I'll support him any way I can, because I think, look, it's easy to have an opinion of Nick because he's a public figure and everybody bases their assumption on someone based on what they see in social media. And it's a dirty, dark, evil, cruel place most of the time. And you don't really get to know people the way you think you do because your impression is shaped by social media. I think Nick's putting on some size. He has been for a couple of years. He's been training off and on pretty seriously. He trains with Garrett down in Florida. So I know he's been training for quite a while. Last time I saw him, he was looking, and he looks healthy, strong, not artificially strong, if you know what I'm saying. He looks like he's been pushing the weight. So I hope so. I hope so in my own way. Or I hope that he pursues it and then decides, you know what? I put my toe in the water. I've decided that it's not right for me. Either way, it's a win.
I don't even know that listen, I want him to do exactly what he wants to do. I'm with you. But even if he doesn't decide to pursue a full-time wrestling career, a one-off, or maybe just, one angle that we play out over the course of 3 months or something, like I could see that being something that would attract a lot of mainstream eyeballs.
Look, mainstream or it doesn't really need the money, right?
No.
It's not like, I got to figure out how to pay the bills. It's not that.
It's fun.
And for Nick, if he gets to the point where he's confident enough in his abilities, can you imagine the fun that he could have on the indie circuit?
No doubt, dude.
I mean, and Nick's all about a good time. Nick likes to be surrounded by people that are having fun. That's why, he does his DJ thing, not because he needs the cash, but because he loves doing it. He loves the energy. So I think for that reason, that's one of the parallels I see with Nick and Hulk, is that Hulk was kind of addicted to the energy, the crowd, the environment, that reaction. Nick's got some of that same vibe in him, right? The same triggers. So if Nick can harness that, and if it ends up playing itself out in a ring, I just imagine, him going out once or twice a month, having the time of his life and picking up a check and bringing it home too.
He was quoted as saying, "It makes me feel so much closer to Dad, being around the business and being kind of around that environment. I have a lot of love for it. And like I said, it's in the blood." He referred to WWE as being family. And he even made sure to say, "I'm in pretty good shape right now. I'm cool. Not saying too much, just trying to stay in shape." It feels like he might do something. And that leads me down my favorite road, one you hate to travel, the hypothetical what if fantasy booking, because we know that Sting's son has just recently made his in-ring debut. And I don't know. It feels like it's right there. We've got Goldberg's kid who's in college football right now, but he may have some interest in doing something on the other side. And we know that Rick Steiner's kid is tearing it up in WWE. It feels like maybe there could be something like, what if there was a hypothetical match with both of Sting's sons against Garrett and Nick? Like, that could be fun. I don't know. I love the idea of, the second generation.
Oh yeah, you could have Garrett Bischoff sitting at ringside supporting his buddy Nick and have to make a save. I don't think Garrett sees himself getting into the ring on any consistent basis, but a Hogan Bischoff angle to launch a story would not be a bad idea.
A lot of fun. Can't wait to see what happens. I hope those guys continue to have fun. Do you think that there's any chance that Brooke Hogan would want to be involved in wrestling at all on any level?
I haven't talked to Brooke in so long that I couldn't begin to suggest I know what she would think. Look, there was at one point in time, she was very serious about it when she was in the middle of her angle with Bully.
Yeah.
That whole storyline, which by the way, was an incredible storyline. I mean, it really was. You talk to Bully, it was one of his favorite storylines in terms of its depth and execution. It might not have been for everybody. Your hardcore wrestling fan, it was probably a little too soap opera-ish for, the hardcore fan. But the general audience really, really enjoyed that. And it did well in the ratings and sold tickets to live events that it was associated with. But at that point in time, she was very interested. I think I saw her even working out in the ring, taking a little coaching from some of the girls that were in TNA at the time, the ladies that were in TNA at the time. So I know there was interest then, but who knows now? I mean, her life's changed a lot, right? She's got 2 kids, husband, kind of settled down, has somewhat of a normal life, at least from the outside looking in. So I don't see it, but hey, that ring, that crowd, even though Brooke only got a little taste of it in TNA, and she certainly got a little taste of it as a performer, as a musician, she knows that connection to a live audience. And once you get that needle in your arm, it's a bitch to get it out. It really is.
I don't know. I kind of like the idea of seeing her. Maybe she's not wrestling, but if you introduce her into a story, then Bully can slide in and he can kind of be the ring general with some of these other younger cats.
Ooh, now we're booking a great indie show. We should save this for like the 35th or 31st anniversary of Nitro. Put it on at the Mall of America.
Let me just put a bug in your ear right now, Eric. Next July is the 30-year anniversary of Hulk Hogan turning heel.
We should do it. We should do a show. We should do an indie show. You and I, the team, not you and I, but the team of all of us as the promoters, and we'll put that on. And wow, what if we could put it on at the Mall of America?
I mean, what if we could put it on at the fucking Daytona Center?
And we could put it on YouTube.
I'm just saying. July 7th will be here before you know it. Hypothetically. Isn't that interesting?
I'm in to give it a push and see if it's something we really want to do. Let's dig into it and like put pencil to paper and start doing math and shit. The part that's not that much fun talking about, But let's get through the fun part because we see what that could be. Let's get through the pencil part, see if it actually makes any kind of sense. If we can get through the pencil part, let's do it.
Hypothetically, Eric, do you remember the date when Hulk Hogan dropped the leg and joined the NWO? Do you remember the date?
Was it the 6th?
July 7th.
7th.
July 7th in 2026 is on a Tuesday. So that means Saturday is the 4th of July. Hypothetically, maybe there could be a premium live event for YouTube on July 5th, 2 days before the 30-year anniversary. I don't know. We'll have to have some fun. We'll have to play that out.
Let's get the pencils out.
Well, by the way, if we do that, I know that everybody's going to want to make sure that they are TV ready, and our friends at SIGNOS can really help you do that. I know Silva is quick to show us the graphic, and we're going to talk about all of their offerings, but I wanted just a minute here, Eric. We want to go back to you on a full screen. Tell us how SIGNOS has helped you. I mean, you just mentioned next year you'll be 71, and you did a reveal earlier this year, and people got to see what you've been up to, just really changing your body. And you kind of thought you were on top of it. You and Miss B have had a passion for this for a long time, but SIGNOS has really helped you up your game. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. And I won't make this like a 2-hour, health podcast, but I thought, as you mentioned, Mrs. B and I have been very, nutrition has been our hobby for really a long time. Particularly Mrs. B. She's actually studied it. She's gone to holistic nutritional schools and gotten degrees and certificates and all kinds of things. She's really done the deep dive in it. But I thought I had things under pretty much control. I was on my carnivore diet. Thought I was being fairly strict, and was, according to a traditional carnivore diet plan. But then I got my SIGNOS, my blood glucose monitor from SIGNOS. And I thought, man, I've been hearing so much about these things. I know what my blood glucose is good. I know I'm not pre-diabetic. I don't have any issues. But when you're managing, I don't just manage my weight. I manage my energy. Losing weight in the process is a byproduct of managing my energy. But what I truly focus on is managing my energy. And one of the things that I've learned over the course of years is how certain foods dramatically affect not only my energy, but my moods. Now, I was never able to really draw direct line connections to the specific foods that I would eat and how they would make me feel. I had a good idea, but I couldn't dial it in. Anyway, SIGNOS comes into my life. Now I've got on my phone, I've got a real-time device that can tell me at any given second what my blood sugar is. Now, why is that important for somebody who's generally healthy and doesn't have any health issues, right? For me, I noticed that, for example, when I would eat 3 or 4 ounces of cheese, which is part of the carnivore diet plan, I didn't go off the reservation, but for whatever reason, cheese, because of my individual metabolism, really spiked my blood glucose. Still within a healthy range. But here's what happens. It spikes my blood glucose. That's no problem. I still feel great. And then it drops. I get foggy. I lose energy. I'm just not as excited and motivated to go do the next thing, whatever the next thing is. I'm kind of in that funk for about a half an hour, 45 minutes. I don't like funk. I'm an anti-funk kind of person when it comes to funk like that. No funk in my life, please. Even if it comes in the form of 3 or 4 ounces of cheese that, according to my carnivore diet plan, I can have. So what the SIGNOS blood glucose monitor has allowed me to do is fine-tune with laser-like precision what I eat during the day so that I can manage my energy so it's at optimal levels from about 6 o'clock in the morning till about 8 o'clock at night. And oh, by the way, in the process, I'm dropping weight like crazy. Not because I'm trying to drop weight, because I'm managing my energy, because I have the ability throughout the day to know when I need to manage it. It's awesome. I will never not have one.
SIGNOS has taken the guesswork out of managing our weight and giving you personalized insights into how your body works with an AI-powered app and the biosensor SIGNOS helps you build healthier habits and stick with them. And right now, SIGNOS has an exclusive offer for our listeners. Go right now to SIGNOS.com. That's SIGNOS.com at SIGNOS.com. And you can get $10 off select plans when you use the code 83weeks. That's SIGNOS.com. The code is 83weeks, and you'll get $10 off select plans today. Hey, so Eric, I'm excited for us to talk about, I can't believe this is real, but 30 years ago this week, Sting faced Hulk Hogan in the main event of Monday Nitro. And I know what you're saying to yourself. You're saying to yourself, that was 1997, Conrad. It happened in 95. And somehow, some way, Hogan was in black and white and Sting was in red and yellow. Huh? But it happened 2 years before the big NWO angle came to a head at Starrcade 97. This is late 1995. We're heading into World War III. The company is pushing some new ideas. Take a look at what we're seeing here with Hulk Hogan. Not only is he wearing black and white, not only is he sans facial hair, but he's got like a black mask. How would you describe the mask that Hogan's wearing right there, Eric?
I don't have words for that. There must have been a reason for it. Like, did he get punched in the nose or?
Well, he was trying different stuff. If you remember, he wore a helmet with a fist on it once in the WWF. He was just trying new gimmicks, brother. But this is when the Dungeon of Doom are after Hulk Hogan. They've taken his world title. The Big Show,
the insanity of Dungeon of Doom pushed him over the edge.
The dark side of Hulkamania, brother, is what we're trying to battle here. But this is an episode of Nitro from Macon, freaking Georgia. And you've got Hulk Hogan and Sting, two of WCW's absolute tippy top baby faces. And they're positioned in a match, not on pay-per-view, but on freaking Nitro. And I just think this is super cool that we're able to see this. It went down on November 20th, 1995. As folks are listening to this, yesterday was the 30-year anniversary. But even just the irony of Sting's in there in the red and yellow and Hogan's in the black and white. Like, little did we know, don't get me wrong, this is a badass main event. Lots of people were curious, sort of the face of WCW versus the face of the WWF. But this is before the NWO even existed. How fun is this to just take a look at? This shouldn't have happened.
You know, you could get into a spiritual conversation about this. Like, was this kind of like, hey guys, over here, I'm giving you a sign here. I got an idea for you. Just throwing it out there. Or just the sheer coincidence of it. Either way, it's fun to go back and look at this. And there was a point I was going to make. Oh, the point was, I would imagine, now you haven't referenced what, the internet wrestling community had to say about this, but I remember specifically getting a shitload of heat for giving away pay-per-view quality matches on free TV. Like, this was, at the time, people were predicting the end of my career because of things like this. And man, did they turn out to be wrong. Now we're seeing, big stars on television on a regular basis, but it's just fun. It's fun to go back and look at this stuff. If somebody would have said, hey, I bet you $10,000 that you had Hogan dressed up in black and white and Sting dressed up in red and yellow when they faced each other on Nitro, I would have taken that bet all day long. Sober, I would have taken that bet. I never bet sober, ever. I'd take that bet sober, and I would have lost. It's awesome.
It's fantastic. I wish we would have bet your hair for the third time.
No, I would not have done that. My wife would have come flying down those stairs. She would have had something to say about that. We just had a conversation about that the other day. I'm watching this guy doing an infomercial, right? And he's got this gimmick where he shaves his head just bald as a cue ball, and it makes it look so easy. I said, honey, because that's the only reason I like doing my head, because then I got to shave my head every day. And it's a pain in the ass. I don't like shaving my face every day, as you can tell. So I thought, but man, with one of those razors, I could keep that shit shiny like Stone Cold Steve Austin. No fly zone, brother. No fly zone. That ain't happening.
I just think it's fun, even back then, as a reminder, this is the dark side of Hulkamania. That's what Jimmy Hart has been saying that he's trying to expose with Kevin Sullivan's help. So, Hulk Hogan's out here in all black, even wearing a mask. I don't know if he's on his way to see Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise or what. But Sting had kind of been WCW's moral compass. I mean, at this point, he's never been a bad guy in WCW, and maybe he's trying to pull the Hulkster out of it. But yeah, here we are in a pretty relatively new show. You know, this thing kicks off in late August, and now here we are in November. And not only are we live, unlike Monday Night Raw every week, but now we're giving away big matches. And it got no bigger than Hulk Hogan and Sting. As you see, of course, there's a big schmoz, but I mean, him attempting a stinger splash on Hulk Hogan, I mean, this is cool. And as you see here, if you're watching with us at 83weeks.com, here comes the Dungeon of Doom. And after the run in, we get the stare down. No hostility, but some unresolved tension. I just think this is cool. Two of the absolute biggest acts, biggest baby faces that you've got. Little did we know that they're going to be on a collision course that would really start a year later, but pay off 2 years after this. And even take a look, you know, the seeds of what's to come. Here's the Macho Man trying to make the save. He too dressed in all black and white, getting a choke slam from the Giant, who's going to play both sides of the fence in the WCW versus NWO stuff. I don't know. I just think it's fun to look back at 95 and think, little did we know what's to come.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
When you take a look at this, I got to ask, you know, Hogan's at least flirting with the dark side of Hulkamania. Was it ever even discussed? Was the subject ever even broached of what if we just leaned into this here? Because by late 95, some of the boos had started to show up for Hulk Hogan. Mm-hmm. Not everybody was on board. And you've told us the story before of, hey, until you walk a mile in my boots, my yellow boots, you won't understand, that sort of thing. And he thanked you for coming and sort of shooed you out of the house. So we've talked about that conversation before. But here in 95, when he's dressing in all black and he's facing Sting, is that Hogan trying to test the waters, in your opinion?
Looking back at it today, I think what it was Hulk sensing the same thing all of us sensed in terms of the reaction that he was getting versus the reaction I think he was hoping to get. And I think this was Hulk maybe feeling things out, trying to get his bearings on where he wanted to go or what he wanted to do next. I think as goofy and animated as the whole Dungeon of Doom creative was, it was really an 80s gimmick, maybe early 90s, but certainly not a mid to late 90s idea. The time for that kind of character had already passed us by, and we were just barely catching up to that. WWE hadn't even caught up to it yet. The reality-based kind of storylines and characters. We weren't there yet, and we led the way. So I think this was Hulk reacting to the same things we all reacted to and trying to figure out where he wanted to go next with his character. I don't think Hulk looked at this as a serious direction. I think he looked at this as an opportunity to test the waters with the character, but I don't think Hulk saw himself as a part of a Dungeon of Doom long-term storyline.
As a reminder, Hulk's going to turn heel 7.5 months after this. So it's not that long.
It's really not.
I mean, when you think about it, it's
5 minutes.
Yes. I got to think that this guy at least warmed him up to the idea. And I guess the next question I want to ask about that is, when we see Hogan turn heel and drop the leg on the baby faces, he drops it on Savage. But he had a feud with Savage for years, going back to 1989. Don't get me wrong. At that point, Savage was certainly a good guy and well established as a good guy and had been on a good guy run for a while, but he did have history with a heel Randy Savage. Nobody can armchair quarterback the NWO turn. I mean, it's the biggest thing in the history of the business. However, could it have been even a little bit more effective that he was turning his back on WCW if he dropped the leg on Sting? Or did you not plan it that way because you still weren't sure, will he do it? We need Sting just in case. Because Sting represented WCW perhaps more. He was the embodiment of WCW.
I get it. That's a really interesting what if. And I hesitated because I was trying to put myself back in my frame of mind in that period. Because the issue of Hogan showing up and committing or not was a real issue. So being that it was a real concern, would I have also simultaneously planned for Hulk to actually go through with it and use Sting in the body of the match, which means I would have had to have been involved in laying that out all day long with Hulk? I don't see it happening. I don't think I would have done that. Even with the opportunity as you just presented it, yeah, it would have maybe meant more in a way, subjectively, and maybe objectively. Maybe from a financial perspective, it would have been bigger. It's hard to imagine that. But even given that, I would have probably stuck to with what we did. And part of it would have been, this is the reality of it. Again, Hulk had laid that finish out. Hulk had talked to Randy. Everybody knew what was going to happen once Hogan actually walked through the curtain. That had all been worked out. I don't know how we could have changed that and worked out those details and still pulled this off under those circumstances. So I would have stuck with the plan.
I got to tell you, I'm fascinated by that because we know that ultimately the big payoff is going to be Hogan versus Sting. So I would have liked to have shown from the very beginning he was dropping the leg on the face of WCW. And we know along the way, Randy Savage was certainly representing WCW here, but he soon too would join the NWO. I think it could have been, even as crazy as this is, this the most successful storyline in history. But if we are going to critique one little thing, I think having him drop the leg on Sting may have been bigger. So,
but you know what? And if all things would have been perfect, if there would not have been a will he or won't he issue, if I wouldn't have had to sequester him for 2 days and hide him from people that were going to talk him out of doing what he agreed to do, which is why I had to sequester him with Kevin Sullivan to protect him from all of the people around him who, you know, they're just there to help, brother. What they're really there to do is create doubt and anxiety. So Hulk kept him within the circle, and they got, like, you know, free shit and sushi dinners and got to hang out and go for boat rides because that group of people were always around Hulk. Hulk liked to be surrounded by people and liked to hear other people's opinions. Well, to a large degree, Hulk surrounded himself with people that weren't always giving Hulk advice that was in his best interest as much it was in their best interest. That's the reason for sequestration, right? Had none of that existed and all things were easy and equal, absolutely. I think the idea, as you laid it out, would have made a great idea even greater. No doubt.
Well, the greatest idea we've had in a long time is bragging about our friends at Blue Chew. If you haven't already, what are you waiting for? You got to try it because you can enter the room dick first. Blue Chew's not just a tablet. Think of it as like a cheat code for your crotch. Stronger, harder, longer lasting. Like somebody gave your downstairs a pep talk and a gym membership. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. I tried Blue Chew and now my hog has a zip code and voting rights. Okay, not really. But guys, we're not just talking about performance. This is about your legacy, or as Blue Chew may say, your third legacy. Give her group chat something to talk about. Nothing makes you more of a legend than a little Blue Chew. Go discover your options right now at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, get your first month of Blue Chew free. Just use the promo code 83 weeks at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join Blue Chew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Head on over to bluechew.com for details and important safety information. And a big thanks to Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast.
Want a little Blue Chew pro tip, Conrad?
Love to have a Blue Chew pro tip.
Pop one of these Blue Chews before you go to the gym. Like if you want to impress yourself or anybody standing around you, get a really good workout in with a Blue Chew in you. You think you've had a pump before, you have no idea.
But then when you come home, you can get a second pump.
And you're ready for business. Just
Yeah,
jump in the shower, you're ready to go.
So you're saying Blue Chew and then lift, and then after lift, come home and do some cardio?
Get your cardio in.
It's time for the Wrestling News Update with Raj Giri.
All right, it's time for my favorite segment on the show. Easy for me to say. Welcome into the program, Mr. Raj Giri. Raj, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Man, we're excited that you're here. It's been a crazy week in wrestling. It's a pay-per-view week. There's lots of chatter. Wanted to catch up with you and see what the latest headlines are.
Man, it's been an insane week. Just a lot going on. A lot of stuff that's not really probably at the forefront of most wrestling fans, thought process. Obviously it's a pay-per-view week and everything going on, so they're more thinking about that. But this was the week where we had Paramount, Netflix, and Comcast submitting bids for WBD. They submitted the bids on Thursday, and the consequences of this, of whichever company eventually ends up getting WBD, if any of them do, just could have huge ripples on the wrestling industry, like gigantic. When I really sit back and think about it, it could be crazy. So right now, WBD stock is trading at over $23 a share. It reached a high of a little over 24. Paramount had previously offered $23.50 per share for the company. That was obviously turned down. And so the bidding this week, it's been reported that the bids are a lot under what David Zaslav wants. Zaslav wants $30 per share, and the bids are reportedly quite a bit under that. It's expected that nothing's going to probably come out of this round of bidding. There's probably going to be 2 to 3 more rounds. So nothing's probably going to come out of this, but the process has started. And Paramount's expected to bid up to $25 and probably won't go past 27. So Comcast and Netflix, on the other hand, I think Paramount's confident that they could probably get it, because Comcast and Netflix only want the studio part in the studio and HBO Max, while Paramount wants the whole company. And with that, Paramount's offering nearly all cash with 80% of its bid, and there would be no leakage. So there's this tax leakage that happens when you sell part of the company. So with Netflix and Comcast, by just buying a chunk of WBD, there would be costly tax consequences for WBD if those bids were selected.
What do you make of all that, Eric?
It's so complicated. And to me, it's more, and I'm trying to follow this because this is the kind of thing that actually is the most interesting aspect of the wrestling business to me, because let's face it, in all sports, particularly in professional wrestling as we know it, television drives the business. If you don't have a solid television deal, you're not really in the professional wrestling business, or any sport for that matter. So this is fascinating to me, but the vertical integration, the legal complexities associated with this make it really fascinating to me, but it's something that I honestly can't track closely enough to get a feel for anymore. There's so much nuance to this. My agent over at Paradigm, Nick Lopiccolo, does a great job of tracking this, and he's really got his finger on the pulse. And I try to stay on top of it by following Nick, because he's really that thorough and has good access to inside information. But even following Nick, man, it's hard to track. I think here's my gut. My gut, it's going to be Paramount. Just, it makes the most sense. The only question is, what is Paramount willing to pay for it? Or probably better stated, what is Zaslav willing to take for it? Because I think WBD is not like, it's not a jewel people are, really hoping to add to the collection. It's a pit.
And obviously, I think a big part of this is AEW. What happens with AEW now? If we were to assume all the reports were correct, it was $185 million that they got for this deal with WBD. Well, that $185 million is basically for 5 parts, right? It's Collision on Max, Collision on TNT, Dynamite on Max, Dynamite on TBS, and then the pay-per-view component, where they're kind of the favored pay-per-view provider, going, with AEW. And so if any of these deals happen, if Netflix, that deal happens, they're not taking the TBS and TNT parts. And so that automatically cuts the value of AEW in half, basically. Same as NBC Comcast. They're not looking at the linear channel. So that cuts the value of AEW in half. Collision, obviously, right now, their ratings have sunk since the deal was made. And this isn't just the change in the Nielsen ratings system. I had posted a couple days earlier, I had gotten the panel ratings days before it came out, and it was a 0.03 with the regular panel ratings, much less the new system. So it garnered, this past Saturday, garnered its lowest 18 to 49 rating in show history, tied with 2 other episodes. And the audiences, it did 219,000 viewers last week. The audience has been under 300,000 for 7 weeks in a row. So that show in the next round of negotiations is almost off the table. It's not, doesn't have much value. And so you look at that pay-per-view component. Is Netflix going to add a pay-per-view component to their service? I don't think so. I don't even think Netflix would want WWE and AEW. Comcast, maybe they'd want to keep Saturday night's main event with AEW. I don't know. Would they add a pay-per-view component? It's possible. So yeah, it does seem like Paramount would be the best spot for AEW if a sale were to take place, because they could take everything over. At least 4 components that I mentioned would still apply on the Paramount networks. But again, Paramount has a deep relationship with WWE. Ari Emanuel, David Ellison, who owns Paramount Skydance, the CEO of Paramount Skydance, he said, Ari Emanuel, the TKO president, he said that he's a mentor. So it does get dicey, and that's where it does get scary as far as the pro wrestling
Well, I just think if you look at the math, a while back, I sound like I'm bragging, and I don't mean to, but what was it, a year and a half ago? I sat right where I'm sitting right now with a bottle of wine and a calculator and my computer, and sat there and just said, okay, what is AEW? What has their performance been over the past 3 years? Television performance. And going off the top of my head, they were losing an average of 20% of their audience year after year after year for like 3 to 5 years. So I sat down and went, okay, I'm going to take this same average, because there's nothing to indicate that the bleeding has stopped. The loss of audience year over year hasn't slowed down significantly enough to change the math. So I just sat down and said, okay, this is what's happened over the past 3 years. Apply this math to the current audience and tell me what the next 3 years is going to look like. And that's how I came out and made the projection that I made a year and a half ago, which happens to be exactly right on the money today. And it was a simple glass or 2 of wine and a calculator to figure it out. Well, when you talk about the value of AEW, and the value is whatever the market is willing to pay for it. That's the value of it. Now, you can sit down with your accountants and you can figure out all kinds of valuation formulas based on, financial protocols. You can do all that if you want. At the end of the day, none of that really matters. The only thing that really matters is what is someone willing to pay you for what you think you have and what you think it's worth. And if anybody in ad sales, whether it be for Paramount, for Turner, for Netflix, who is ever in the television business where ad sales or sponsorship is a factor, is going to do the same thing I did with a glass of wine. They're going to sit down and go, okay, what are their numbers? It's just math. There's no magic. It's just math. You look at the numbers. This is where they've been. Based on where they've been, where are they going? And if you look at where they're going in the next 36 months, there's absolutely less than no value there. You're giving up valuable beachfront property to not make any money. I just don't see an end game there, unless there's consolidation on AEW's part, a better focus on the product, something to indicate to that ad sales division president that the outlook for this property is something different than the current math formula suggests that it will be.
And I'm curious, Eric, Tony Khan, in the interview with Ariel Helwani, he once again said he doesn't know the HBO Max numbers. How do you negotiate, when your deal is coming up, it's coming up here in a couple of years. How do you negotiate Dynamite to, say, an Amazon Prime if you don't have those numbers? Then all the numbers that they can look at are your cable. Assuming it's true, all the numbers that they can look at are cable.
I hope you're not in a hurry, but you've asked such an important question. And
I'm not in a hurry either, but I needed to run a timeout. We're talking about great sponsorships. We got a great sponsorship from Into Cloud. I want to give a plug for them right now, and then we're going to get back to this conversation. I have used this product, and I know you're going to love this product. Go right now to enda.shop/83 weeks. You're going to find everything you're looking for. I absolutely love this, especially if we're talking about their sleep gummies for when your brain insists on writing a 3-season Netflix drama at 1 a.m. and you just can't go to sleep. They're good for that. You can sleep better without needing another medication or some sort of app subscription. You can laugh harder without becoming the punchline. They've got potent pre-rolls when your fantasy football loss feels personal. And they've even got $70 ounces because a good laugh shouldn't come with a luxury tax. I'm a big believer in this product. Everybody I know who is into this sort of thing has found that Into Cloud is the real deal. It's your online cannabis dispensary for all things gummies, exotic flowers, potent pre-rolls, and more. We're talking all federally legal, THC, DEA certified, lab tested, and yes, it's shipped discreetly. Translation, no more mystery brownies from a friend of a friend, just stuff that really works, shows up on time, and doesn't make you the punchline. If you're 21 or older, head right now to indacloud.co, and the code is 83 weeks. You'll get 40% off, free shipping, and the only Black Friday upgrade that comes with actual belly laughs. Check it out. It's indacloud.co, and the code is 83 weeks. So, Eric, tell us where you land on this. How do you negotiate a better deal for your streaming if you don't know your current streaming numbers?
And neither does so here's where we're at. Real American Freestyle. We've got an amazing deal with Fox and Fox Nation in particular for a multi-episode deal with them. And we will be negotiating for a longer term agreement with them once they get through their budget year. But in the meantime, I have to have a plan B. I have to be prepared to go out and sell Real American Freestyle to another platform if for whatever reason Fox Nation doesn't come across the finish line, because you just never know, right? It's silly to invest what we've invested and put everything we put into one basket, right? It's not smart business. Now, one of my biggest challenges is how do I go out and sell the success that Real American Freestyle has had at Fox Nation when I don't have the data to support it? Because guess what? I've asked for it, and I'm not going to get it from anybody at Fox Nation. And I'm sure the same is true with most streaming platforms. They hold on to that data, and they're not sharing it with anybody. Few executives that I've talked to at Fox have access to that data. But I'm the guy out selling. Chad Bronstein, my partner and I, it's not a solo effort, trust me. We're going to be sitting down with different television partners selling the success of Real American Freestyle on Fox Nation. And by the way, it is successful. They called us 24 hours after our first event. We only had a deal for 2 events. They called us 48 hours after our first event, asked us to fly to New York the next day and sign an extension for, I won't say how many, it's not my business to discuss, but quite a few more episodes, right? Based on the success. We know anecdotally, I'll be careful how I say it because I don't want to ruin relationships. But anecdotally, we know it is one of the most, if not the most, subscribed event on Fox Nation this year. But I can't sell that. That's not a data point I can sell. So here's the answer to your question. It's up to me, Chad, our team, to look for all of the data points that we can control, that we can show growth in, whether that's YouTube, whether that's social media, whether that's ticket sale growth, In our case, we've got a good story to tell, believe it or not. Despite what Dave Meltzer and the internet wrestling community would have you believe, we've got a very good, not a great story. We're only 3 events in, but we've got a positive story to tell. We've got a very positive story to tell, with regard to social media growth and engagement, more than anything, engagement, right? Our YouTube, we've got over 10,000 subscribers and growing, and we haven't even started promoting it yet. So in the meantime, we're going to start promoting all the things that we have control over. We have to show growth, because growth shows potential. And in many cases, people are buying a product not only based on its performance, but based on its future potential. Whether that's good potential or not good potential is up to people who can control the outcome of the things that are within their wheelhouse.
And that's kind of where it gets iffy, because you're talking about how you can sell Real American Freestyle. Well, with Tony, with Dynamite and Collision, you have those data points. You have a set of data points that are out there with the cable numbers. And I know Tony was on Ariel's show doing that interview, and he was saying that they were up, which is just categorically not true. I mean, they're from Q4 last year, their number went up in Q1. Their audience, not the P18 to 4, not the 18 to 49 demo, but every quarter, you look at 2024 to 2025, every quarter, Dynamite is down substantially in both total viewers and the 18 to 49 demo. So in Amazon Prime, if they can't get, if they don't have access to these HBO Max numbers, they have these other numbers that they can look at, and they see these declines year over year. And I don't know. I just feel like that's where it kind of gets scary, especially with a show like Collision, which is doing almost nothing now.
I go back to one of the first things I said when I got, branded as a Tony Khan hater or an AEW hater. And it wasn't hate. It was really good advice that I'm pretty sure somebody wished they would have listened to at this point, is if you're not growing, you're dying. And there's no better illustration of that point that I made 5 or 6 years ago than where AEW is at right now, based on the conversation we just had, because there is no data point they can point to that I'm aware of that would indicate potential growth. YouTube numbers, I don't know what they are, but I'm guessing they're flat or decreasing, unless they're making an effort that I'm unaware of to get those numbers up. Ticket sales, I don't know. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. That math doesn't math. Ratings, despite all of the stuff that Tony goes out and says, which I don't know why he says it, because people in the ad sales industry and the television industry know that he's full of shit, know that it's a lie, which doesn't endear you to anybody on that side of the business. When you're sitting out there publicly trying to paint a picture that doesn't exist, it's hard to have credibility when you're sitting in a room with people that know better. It's just the whole thing is kind of a mess, and it's all because they haven't been growing in any category other than the illusions that they create in their mind.
Raj, I want to ask you, I don't know that you saw this, but Brandon Thurston put out a tweet this morning saying that he had some comments from the CEO of the Media Ratings Council. Have you seen that?
Is this the one from CW or?
The MRC CEO and executive director, George W. Ivey, responded with a statement sent after the initial publishing of this article. So he continues on. But the gist was, there's been a big debate about the way wrestling ratings looked before and after, and there's some discrepancies. So he is quoted as saying, "I haven't seen the figures you're quoting in your email, but we will definitely consider these as we evaluate the service going forward." And I know that not everybody has been paying attention to this. Can you sort of shed some light on the way ratings were looked at before versus what's happening now, and what discrepancies have been presented as it pertains to wrestling?
Sure. So before, the ratings were, maybe like 40,000 households. So that's what they called a panel only. It was like 40,000 households, and the ratings were based on a sample of that. Now they're counting, smart TVs and things like that. So now you're now they open that pool to tens of millions of devices. But they're also, with those devices, you don't get demographic info like, how many people are watching the show, things like that. So they kind of combine that with the panel data, which, that data does tell you how many people are watching, and the demos and things like that. And so they're using that. And before, and the NFL really wanted it. They felt like they were being undercounted. A lot of sports leagues felt like they were being undercounted. And with this change in the system, they were. I mean, their numbers are through the roof. I mean, they're breaking records like every week. You're constantly seeing, World Series second highest in the last, outside of last 10 years. And this NFL game was, the best number in the last 12 years. So their numbers have improved. And that's why I don't see much changing, because the big dogs are happy with this new rating system. But wrestling...
Is there an explanation? Like, has anybody offered just a guess as to why wrestling has fared so poorly compared to other programming?
There has been this... So until Nielsen really comes out and says how they're calculating this... it's tough to say. There have been reports that wrestling, unless you change the channel, because it's not counted as sports, it's counted as entertainment. So every 30 minutes, if you're not changing the channel, it doesn't count it, which doesn't make sense, because every now and then when you do get quarter hours for a show, you don't see just big shifts every 30 minutes. It's been, kind of the regular pattern that you've seen. But it is the 18 to 34 in particular is so low with this new system. And, some of it's definitely got to be wrong, because how low the numbers are, it just doesn't make sense, especially for a show like SmackDown, where, just the sniff test, you could see how many young people are in the crowd, the attendance and things like that. But it could just be that so many young people are watching on devices like iPads and phones that it's just not being tracked properly, with this new system.
Raj, I want to ask you.
I don't want to go too far into the weeds in this, but I wonder if there's two things you said there, Raj, that got me interested. One is the classification of wrestling as either sports or entertainment.
Yeah.
That's always been kind of a funky space anyway.
Mm-hmm.
When you're out selling advertising, if you represent an agency or a client and you're selling advertising, whether wrestling is a sport or entertainment is a subject of discussion and debate. And wrestling usually loses the sports debate when you're talking to people in the television industry. But I'm wondering if that classification somehow affects it. And here's the other thing I'm thinking. With the fast channel devices, which are primarily phones, right? I'm wondering, back in the day, for example, Nielsen used to consider a household as 2.3 people. And the average age and composition of a US family household was X. So the formula at its foundation is based on an assumption. You're assuming on average how many people are in a house watching television and what their ages are. Now, if they're metered and you're putting in the ages of people, that's a little bit different. But the calculation that's used to extrapolate the large number is based on a formula. And I'm wondering if that formula for television is the same as the basic formula for fast channel. Meaning, if a fast channel is primarily this, which means you're at one viewer per household, so to speak, this being a household or view, as opposed to 2.3, which is what it was, 2.2 or 2.3 at an average demo. I'm wondering if factoring in fast because of a different formula is affecting the overall number with regard to 18 to 34-year-olds.
Yeah, and I also wonder, and real quick, a quick correction. It was 42,000 households before that were being calculated for the Nielsen panel rating, and now it's 45 million plus devices, set-top boxes, smart TVs, and a lot of it. a lot of the new viewers is also counting out of home viewing. And so I always wondered how you do that, because like if I'm at a Buffalo Wild Wings, right, watching football, it can't tell which game I'm watching. There's 70 screens going, and most likely, obviously there's one featured game, but there's all these other screens, playing, the different sports and everything. So I just don't get how they're able to calculate that out of home viewing for sports bars and things like that. So could that skew the wrestling ratings off? Because, usually when you go to a sports bar, you don't see wrestling, but you do see NHL and things like that, which even if you're not a fan, it's on. So I don't know, how that's being tracked, if that's just skewing it more heavily in favor of other sports, as you have seen a big increase with other sports with this new system. Yeah. But Nielsen, this is the system.
Nielsen and ratings have always been voodoo since the minute I broke into the television business in 1987. It's still voodoo to this day, only now it's more complicated voodoo.
And that's the thing, when there are people out there who have been trying to make the case that, Dynamite's getting more viewers than Raw, or they were making that case. But it's like the Netflix numbers are actually super accurate, right? Because they can track directly how many people are logging on and watching a show. It's not a sample size. It's not, theoretical. It's the actual number of viewers. Whereas, as we've seen with Nielsen, it can vary so greatly depending on, which methodology they want to use. So until you can get something, and as everything is going to streaming, and as we just talked about earlier, they're keeping those numbers under lockdown, which makes it difficult for, most people to see exactly how many people are watching these shows. But as you're going to more streaming, it gets easier and easier to get that data. For WBD, they can quickly find out how many people watched the last Dynamite. But with Nielsen, you're still stuck in their system, and they can't figure out which way to go. They changed it. It drastically changes a television show's ratings, and it just shows just how inaccurate Nielsen could be, and probably was or is.
Well, the formula is changing when it comes to ratings, but it's not changing with our friends over at Prize Picks. If you haven't already checked out Prize Picks, what are you waiting for? Now is a great time to do it. Not only can you have some fun with football, but basketball now too. Come on, man. If you're a fan of both like me, man, it feels good to be right. You're going to love Prize Picks. I've had a lot of fun with Prize Picks. It feels like everybody in the office is talking about it. My phone was blowing up last night because of Josh Allen and what he was doing. This weekend, I'm looking forward to doubling down on not only the NFL, but some NBA as well. And Prize Picks is so simple to play. You just pick more or less on at least 2 different player stats. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on football and basketball in more than 40 states. I'm talking to you, California, Texas, and even Georgia. Prize Picks now even offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Let me explain. Maybe you want to pick more on Steph Curry's points, 3-pointers, and assists. And now you can pick them all. I can't believe Prize Picks is doing this. This is fun. I'm having a lot of fun. I know you will too. If you haven't already, go check it out. What you'll find is if you're looking for flexibility, Prize Picks has you hooked up with what they call Flex Play. Now you can even get paid even if your picks miss. If you want one of the biggest payouts, you got to check out the Power Play. No matter your play, Prize Picks is a great way to get your takes and put them to the test. Did I mention injury reboots before? Here's how that works. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks won't even count it as a loss. It's the best way to cash in on football and basketball season. You know who's going off. You know who's overhyped. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season long with Prize Picks. By the way, they make it fast and easy. They put their users first at Prize Picks. Yeah, they got Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more. It's fast. It's easy. Millions of people are using it, and you should too. It's America's #1 fantasy sports app. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code 83weeks to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. You heard me right. Use the code 83weeks and you'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Raj, I want to ask you, we're talking about TV here. I heard a rumor TNA may be going to AMC. I have to admit, I was under the impression TNA is going to CW and they're going to go head to head with AEW. That's what I felt like. But now I heard a rumor AMC. Where does this come from?
Yeah, that's wild because AMC has never had sports. You know, they're known for prestige TV like Mad Men and Walking Dead and Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, like shows like that. So, I mean, that would be a huge get for TNA. It's an interesting one, but yeah, you know, you're talking about TNA being on Access TV that as of a couple years ago was in 30,000 homes. I'm sure that's a lot lower now, as opposed to now going to AMC, which is, you know, in about 60 million homes, 61 million. So it's a big increase in terms of the strength of the network. And yeah, it would be a big get. So apparently they're looking to announce by the end of the year, Carlos Silva, the TNA president, he's been shopping the distribution rights around for a while. And he said that he expects to get between $7 and $10 million for TNA's TV rights, which is, you know, is a really good deal. Like when you compare it to, you know, some of the other wrestling programming that's out there. So yeah, it would be the best upgrade for TNA as far as a TV rights deal since they got on Spike TV.
I wanted to also ask
that's about $200,000 an episode for 52 episodes.
How much was production for each episode of Impact when you were there?
I wasn't involved in that, so I couldn't tell you exactly. I had no access to those numbers, but I would imagine it was in the 250 range, 225 to 250. But keep in mind that was, you know, sound stage, not arenas, so everything was a little more expensive to take it on the road than it is to do it in a fixed base location. But here's the thing: technology has changed so much in terms of the technology available to produce programming that what used to take 500 grand, you can do now for 350. Mm-hmm. What used to cost 250, you can do now for 200, under 200. My point in all this is not knowing anything at all about TNA's financial structure or where they're at, just looking at what's possible and knowing, having a little bit of experience in this, they could be making money at 200 grand an episode if the deal is structured correctly. So I think Carlos is probably on the money, because that's kind of like the threshold right now for a lot of these smaller platforms that are trying to find a way to regain audience. AMC is going the same way a lot of other networks have gone. They can't compete in the high-end movie business anymore. They used to be able to, 10, 15 years ago when they were breaking shows like Breaking Bad. Those shows have all gone to bigger, more well-funded streaming platforms. Those producers are making more money. Those actors and actresses are making more money on your larger platforms. So your smaller cable outlets that used to be able to kind of own a reasonable share of that marketplace can no longer compete. So now they're looking at alternative programming. Wrestling has always been considered alternative programming. It's not comedy. It's not a drama. It's not sports, despite what Dave Meltzer tries to convince people. It's not any of those things. It's its own little thing called alternative programming. And networks like AMC start looking at those opportunities as a means to shore up their audience. The good news for Carlos and company at TNA is wrestling in general has always been a pretty good bet when it comes to small to medium-sized audiences of men 18 to 49. I see AMC making this bet. As odd as it may seem, based on the way they've programmed themselves previously, the fact that they're probably shifting their business strategy to a less expensive, more predictable audience makes TNA a logical choice and decision from my perspective. If I put myself in the shoes of a programmer.
I wanted to ask you too, before we let you out of here, Raj, this John Cena tournament, it feels like it's rounding the bases now. We've already seen some big surprises. This past Monday in New York, Dolph Ziggler returned to WWE to a hero's welcome. People were really excited. Last Friday, a week ago, we saw Matt Cardona, the indie god, show up on SmackDown. So it feels like a lot of the surprises are behind us. It was John Cena night on Monday Night Raw. We saw him in a 6-man tag with Sheamus and Rey Mysterio. We're sort of rounding the bases. We got 2 appearances left for Cena. One next weekend at Survivor Series, and then the final episode of Saturday night's main event for John Cena. It goes down on December 13th. Lots of speculation about what will happen and what should happen and who should get the nod. What's your take on the Cena tournament?
Well, it looks like it's going to be Gunther. I personally didn't like the idea of the tournament. I'd rather have a big story leading to a big retirement match, kind of like you had with Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair. Something with the story, with the emotion headed into it, as opposed to the winner of this tournament gets to face me. That's just me. But a lot of people are into this tournament, and they have done a good job of making it feel like a big deal. Me personally, I know John Cena. He got crushed by Brock Lesnar. It doesn't look like it's going to be Brock Lesnar as his last match. I'd like to see Cena go out on top. You don't see that often in WWE, where the megastar wins his final match, but I think it would be a cool moment. I don't think he'll allow it. I think he really wants to go out on his back, but I'd like to see him win it. But all indications, if I were a betting man, I'd say it's Gunther beating Cena in his last match. Gunther leaves the ring. Cena soaks in the crowd adulation. It's a cool moment, but Cena loses.
And Gunther's a made man.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Anna Jay, Raj. I don't know if you saw this, but overnight it looks like everybody's chatting about what's next for Anna Jay. I guess there's a report from Sean Ross Sapp that sources in AEW believe that Anna Jay's contract is expiring soon. And I saw lots of debate. Is this someone who would stay with AEW? Is this someone who would maybe explore opportunities in WWE? Or is she someone who, may make money outside of the business or outside of the big 2 and sort of go on excursion, if you will? Do you have any insight as to what's next for Anna Jay? I know at different times she's been a really featured part of the program. I don't know that that's always been the case consistently, but I guess that's kind of always been an AEW problem. They have so much talent. But we saw earlier this year, Mariah May made the big leap to WWE. Mm-hmm. What do you think Anna Jay may do?
Well, if you look at Anna Jay, she has kind of been treading water in AEW for a while. And she does have that, she has a great look. She has that unique charisma that if she wants to explore other opportunities outside of wrestling, then WWE is kind of the right move. I mean, you see Liv Morgan getting these big movie roles now. Jade Cargill recently, she just had that movie role. She's making her acting debut. So you get the new administration with WWE. They're a lot more amenable to people doing outside projects than Vince McMahon was. So it seems like WWE would be the right fit for someone like her, because she does have a unique charisma and things like that. And those things I feel like help you move up the ladder faster in WWE than perhaps it does in AEW. So I think a move would be the right call, even if she has to go to NXT for a while. I think Mariah May, I think she's going to be a megastar here within a couple of years. And I could see Anna Jay's stock going up if she were to leave.
And you mentioned, WWE and their support of athletes or members of the roster going out and expanding into acting. I mean, you look what CM Punk's got going on. Drew is in a movie. Again, Nick LoPiccolo, my agent over at Paradigm, represents them, so I hear about it a lot. But Nick and WWE are working together pretty well, and there's a lot of those opportunities opening up to talent. I'm really happy to see it. Really happy to see it.
Well, Raj, we appreciate you giving us all the scoops this week. Is there anything else on your plate you want to cover?
No, I think that's about it. We went a lot longer than I was expecting, but it has been a crazy week. And, again, the stuff outside the ring is sometimes way more interesting than the stuff inside the ring.
Well, be sure to check out Raj over on Twitter. He's always got an opinion and we love him for that. It's at the Raj Giri on Twitter. And you even do a podcast. Tell everybody where they can hear it, Raj.
Yeah, check out Massive Heat. We'll be doing our next episode after the Survivor Series, myself, Matt Morgan, and Jack Farmer. So check that out on the podcast Heat Wrestling YouTube channel.
Thanks for all the time, Raj. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks,
All right,
Raj.
take care, guys.
Eric, I need to tell our friends about Cash Out, but I can't wait to talk about War Games with you. In the meantime, if you haven't already, I got to ask, why don't you already have Cash App? It is an absolute no-brainer, especially if you're going to be doing meet and greets or on the circuit, or even if you're just going to lunch with friends and you guys are going to split the bill. Like everybody I know uses Cash App. I pay my freaking landscaper with Cash App. And if you don't have it, you need it. Cash App is more than just a safe way to send and receive money, though. With the Cash App card, you get tons of perks, all without hidden fees. Think like early access to big concert pre-sales. I'm talking big stars like Kendrick Lamar and Sabrina Carpenter. Plus, you get discounts on everyday purchases at brands you're probably already spending money on. It makes sense to keep your money safe because with Cash App and a Cash App card, they'll automatically flag suspicious transactions for you. And then they'll even let you lock your card instantly if you ever realize it's lost or stolen. And right now, for a limited time, new Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use the code CashApp10 in their profile at sign up and then send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Check that out. $10. All you got to do is use the code CashApp10 in their profile when you sign up and then send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services are provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Discounts provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. All right, Eric, I'm pretty fired up. You heard everybody talking about it this week, I'm sure. Tony Khan had arguably his best media appearance ever. He went on Ariel Helwani Show, and once upon a time, those guys felt like they were sworn enemies, but that was not the case. Tony was actually in studio for Ariel. They had a great chat, but of course, anytime he's interviewed, your name comes up. So I thought, why don't we play some of that for you and let you have an opportunity to respond to some of that? Of course, he's doing that because Ariel Helwani has a great history with Tony Khan. We know he's a big wrestling fan. And we know this weekend, as folks are listening to this, is the big AEW pay-per-view Full Gear in the Northeast. So it checked a lot of boxes and it made a lot of sense for these guys to mend fences and get back together. One of the things that came up was Ariel and Tony talking about how WWE has counter-programmed them. So I wanted to play that clip for you and just see what you thought. Here we go.
Something that I was really curious about, and I hadn't really heard you asked about this, so would love to hear your thoughts. It is very clear to me as an outsider that when you're putting on a big show, WWE tries to counter-program it. How do you react when this happens? Do you think this is being done on purpose?
I do think it's done on purpose, and I understand it, and it's part of wrestling, and I think we've seen a lot of it, but I think other wrestling promotions that have been the challenger wrestling brand in our lifetime have seen a lot of it. Jim Crockett Promotions, which was the forerunner to WCW, saw a lot of this. And Jim Crockett Promotions ended up having to sell the company to Ted Turner, who then made a great run. It took a while. And really, if you look, Ted Turner took over at the start of 1989, and the strongest run came over 6 years later, almost 7 years later it started, really, when business peaked and took off their peak years. So it's interesting because as a challenger wrestling promotion, you've got a great opportunity, but it's really hard. It involves tons of investment to build up to be a true, strong challenger, and that's why we took the risk with AEW when we did. I do think that we've seen that kind of counter-programming in those things, and I understand, and looking back at wrestling history, kind of expect that. And
does it frustrate you?
I think it's okay because for us, it's always worked out and we're in a great position. So it hasn't ever been a thing where it's cost us anything. And even when you do something like AEW All in Texas, where we do the show in the afternoon. It really worked out for us great, and it was one of the best days in the history of the company. So
you don't take it personally. You're not like, can you guys just leave me alone? No. Can I just have the day for myself? The one in Toronto, right? You put it earlier in the day because they had the ESPN debut. And so I was just curious how you react internally to this.
Well, it's very interesting. I think that it's something that is a part of the wrestling business, and I definitely don't take it personally. I think it's no more personal to me than it was towards Jim Crockett, or even maybe less so than it was with Ted Turner, or similar amounts as with Ted Turner. But definitely, I think all of us have seen that kind of counter programming and could speak to that. And certainly with AEW, I'm very proud that we continue to really run strong and be that great challenger brand in pro wrestling. AEW is where the best wrestle. I really believe that. And I think we have the best roster in wrestling today and the best wrestlers, and put on the best shows like this Saturday.
What do you think, Eric?
I want to give Tony credit. He's trying. He handled himself really well. Ariel was asking him some tough questions, and I think Tony handled them professionally. I don't think he was being as honest as perhaps he could have been, but I don't think necessarily being 100% honest and exposing your emotional perspective about things necessarily serves you serves you well. Certainly hasn't served Tony well in the past. Typically, when Tony does an interview, it's a train wreck. This wasn't that. Tony put himself and his company in a favorable light. I find, the challenger brand designation continues to make me laugh. I don't know what they're challenging for necessarily. But it's a cool thing to say, and it fits nice in an interview. In terms of the counter programming, I was the king of it. I'm the one that went head to head. It was Ted's decision, not Eric Bischoff's. I want to make that clear. But nonetheless, I embrace it and went. We counter programmed Vince McMahon, not vice versa. Because we really were a challenger brand. And I really did want to become the #1 wrestling company in the United States, in the world. And we took actions to do it. So when Tony refers to himself as a challenger brand, it brings a smile to my face.
Well, Eric, your name came up when Ariel asked Tony about AEW critics. Let's take a listen.
Coming from Eric, because Eric sat in the position and he was making a lot of great moves, and Eric had a run that is unbelievably successful when you look back at what he accomplished from 1995 to 1998, and it was unbelievable. And he still did some good things in those other years, and he did a lot, and it wasn't like everything he did in 1995 and 1998 was 100% perfect 52 weeks a year, but he did some really incredible things, and the sum of his accomplishments is unbelievable, and he still talks about it to this day, and 83 weeks is something that is synonymous with Eric and his brand, and it's a name of his show. It's incredibly impressive. I also was one of the wrestling fans as a kid when I was like 11, 12, 13 years old, who was critical at times of some of the things Eric did, but also appreciative at times. And I was more balanced than other people, but I understand what it is to be a wrestling fan and to have certain things you want and expect out of a wrestling show. I think that Eric did a lot of those things, so he has a really good understanding of what it is to be on TBS and be on TNT and put on pay-per-views and work with the executives at Turner. Even some of the people who've been there for 30 years have worked with both of us through different administrations, which is incredible.
Wow.
So I talked to him about that at times. So I do think for Eric, I respect.
Recently or no?
It's been a while, but not that long. And I I respect his opinions. And I think he talks about AEW a lot because AEW's on every Wednesday night, every Saturday night, and then it gives them good content to talk about. So I think in his case, I think it's interesting because he spends a lot of time talking about AEW, but I think he's also cognizant that there were a lot of media personalities and former wrestling promoters that had strong vocal opinions of him. And I'm not trying to say that I've done more than him or I think that one thing that was cool this year was when we hit a milestone that's not a round number, but episode 289 of Wednesday Night Dynamite is remembered as one of the best ones.
What do you think?
I mean, I don't know what to think. He didn't really he didn't really talk about my critique other than saying, I talk about AEW a lot. Let me make something really clear. I don't like talking about AEW. I had a conversation with you 6 months ago or so where I said, I just don't want to talk about it anymore. There's nothing new to talk about. So if I get asked a question in the course of doing my show, I'm going to give an answer. I'm not going to respond with, oh, I don't want to talk about that. It's not what I do. It's not what the show's about. But at the same time, I don't spend much time thinking about AEW, and I try not to think about it unless I'm asked a question. My criticism towards Tony Khan and AEW has been, granted, it's probably been a little salty, probably drew blood once or twice, but my criticism is based in fact. It's based in experience. It's based on what's going on today. And me being critical of what AEW has, Dave Meltzer calls stories, for example. I've been talking about the lack of story, good story, actual story, the lack of it in AEW for 5.5 years. I've been talking about the characters and the way they're presented and the way the wrestling is presented for the last 5 or 6 years. And in the process of talking about what's wrong and what could be better, I've also predicted what the outcome of AEW would be from a ratings perspective and an audience perspective if these things are not addressed. Like Booz Allen couldn't have come in and provided a much better internal audit from a creative and strategic perspective than I've been giving to AEW over the last 5 years for free. And if Tony would have listened to some of that, he might not be in the position that we were just discussing with Raj Giri about being in a situation where, yeah, you've got a TV contract that reportedly is worth $185 million a year for 4 or 5 different shows, whatever it is. First of all, I ain't buying at $185 million. That's the face value of the agreement, including promotional consideration, which is a big chunk of that. It's not all cash. I'm sure of that. But regardless of that, Tony's sitting here now going, wait a minute, I don't know who's going to have my rights. I don't know if they're even going to want my rights. And by the way, based on our conversation with Raj Giri, I really don't have anywhere to go because I haven't been telling stories. I haven't been building characters the way they need to be built if you are indeed truly a challenger brand with the idea in mind of growing your business. So it was nice of him to say nice things about me. I'm always happy to hear that. He didn't really say anything negative, so I don't have anything to react to other than I wish Tony would listen to criticism, whether it's from me or Jim Cornette, who I think is probably smarter than me in many respects. He's got a different feel than I do in terms of the wrestling product, and it's a valuable perspective. You may not like the way it comes out. You may not like the package that information is in, but the value of that information is nonetheless really important. And the same is true with my criticism or other people that criticize Tony for much the same thing that I've been criticizing them for 6 years now. Finally, everybody's kind of pointing it out. Like, ooh, wow, just discovered it. If Tony would listen to the people, he's got people around him that can help him. I've said this for 5 or 6 years. He doesn't need to go out and hire anybody. There's people already there that can help. Let them help. So you're not in the position you're in. Whether it's my criticism and I've been in the chair and I've worked, none of that matters. What matters is there are people out there that actually have ideas that can really help you, Tony. And you may not like the package that it comes in, but just open up the package and take a look at it. It might be something that you find very valuable and could help you.
Are you open to a Tony Khan meeting?
I'm not against it. I just don't know what the purpose would be. But you know me. You know, you sit me down with a glass of wine and a steak, I'll talk to anybody. I don't care. You know, I mean, sure. Over the phone, I'm no better in person than I am over the phone. So we could do a Zoom call too. That's fine.
Well, I'm just thinking in my head, you know, he's traveling 5 days a week. You're traveling all the time. It feels like eventually you guys are going to be in the same town for something. And I just thought, you know, if I happen to be in the same town, maybe I could facilitate, because I really like Tony, and I love you. And I feel like, man, we could get you guys on the same page. And I don't know, it just feels like the right next step, maybe.
I'm happy to meet with anybody, bro. There's no hard feelings. Let's put it that way. Tony's never done anything to me. I lost respect for him. Don't need to go into it again. Why? But that's not something that I carry around like, you know, scar tissue. It is what it is. But as far as me, he's never said anything negative about me that I've heard or care about if he did.
Well, we'll see if you still feel that way, because we got a couple more clips I want to show you, including one where we're talking about Dynamite versus Nitro. But before we do, I just want to remind you, cold mornings, holiday plans, this is when we all just need our wardrobe to be simple. Stuff that looks sharp, but it feels good. And, well, you know, things I'll actually wear. We've all got things in our closet that we don't want to throw out, but when was the last time you really wore it? We need stuff that makes us look good, feel good, and we like wearing. And for me, that's Quince. And the bonus, Quince makes pieces that make great gifts too. This season, the lineup is simple but smart and easy with Quince. $50 Mongolian cashmere sweaters that feel like an everyday luxury. Wool coats that are equal parts stylish and durable. And the denim nails the fit and everyday comfort, all at a fraction of what you normally expect to pay. By partnering directly with ethical factories and top artisans, Quince cuts out the middleman to deliver premium quality at half the cost of the other high-end brands. So you can give luxury quality pieces without the luxury price tag. And I got to tell you, this has been a real hit at the office. You know, we try a new product before we endorse it here on the program. And I was even able to use this promo code I'm about to give you to hook my dad up with some stuff. He just is on a successful side of a great surgery that is going to change his life. And it was sort of something that the family was nervous about. And so when he was back in the office, I had him a little care package there with some new duds, and he's loving it. He's looking sharper than ever. So I can confirm it's a great gift too. Give and get timeless holiday staples this season with Quince. Go right now to quince.com/83 weeks for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now even available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/83 weeks, free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/83 weeks, QUINCE.com/83 weeks.
I just went, while you were reading that, I went to the quince.com website, and I'm going to be ordering some really cool stuff. I just went on and I'm going, whoa, wait a minute. I like it.
Cool. Check it out, quince.com/83 weeks. Eric, let's see how you like this conversation about the number of episodes of Dynamite relative to Nitro. Let's take a listen.
Something I'm really proud of, because it made us the longest running primetime pro wrestling show ever on TBS or TNT. And that includes the great shows that they put on. And
he gave you props for that.
He did. And it meant a lot to me. So I appreciated that. So thank you for bringing that up. I thought that was really cool. And so it's mixed opinions, right? And everybody's entitled to their opinion. But I also think Eric's in a unique position because he was in the chair and he did have to make a lot of decisions. And he also knows that you can't go backwards. You can only go forwards, and you can only learn from the things you've done. So I'm very fortunate. I think about it all the time to still be in the chair, because you can make a mistake, and if you make a series of mistakes and you go down a wrong path in pro wrestling, you can end up in a place that nobody comes back from. And look how many people in pro wrestling went down that door of making a mistake after mistake, and then they were gone. And sometimes it's not their fault. It's due to extenuating circumstances you can't control. But I'm fortunate that if I make a mistake, that I've always been able to go back and look at it or figure out what can we do to make the next show perfect, or make sure I don't do that again, because I really think that course correcting, making sure that we are always on point for the next show is a really strong aspect of AEW. I think that's part of the consistency. And, on the one hand, I could say I've only been a wrestling promoter for 6.5 years, and I've only been booking and producing wrestling shows for 6.5 years. On the other hand, that's one of the longest runs anybody's ever had.
Sure.
So I've been fortunate to learn a lot of things, and I'm fortunate that tomorrow I get to do another one, and Saturday I get to do another pay-per-view, and I'm never ungrateful for that. I'm always very grateful to the fans who watch the shows that we're still in this position.
Yeah. So listen, I don't know, but it feels like he's got more grace for you than we've seen in a while. What's your reaction?
I don't have much of one. I mean, he didn't say anything really to cause me to react. Acknowledging the success of WCW, that's nice. I appreciate that. I think fans of WCW, the former employees of WCW, enjoy hearing that. What else do I think about it? Look, Tony's in a unique position in that he's unaccountable. He doesn't have to be, he's not held in account financially. I was under a microscope financially, as well as from a performance perspective, in a ratings perspective, in an operational perspective, because WCW was owned by Turner Broadcasting. So the corporate environment that I had to live within is much different in terms of accountability than where Tony gets to operate from. Tony's seat is really accountable to no one but Tony from a financial perspective. I didn't have that luxury. And when you can afford to pay for your seat, it's a lot easier to hold on to that seat. So I'd be careful about comparing yourself to other people who were, quote unquote, in that chair, and your longevity as it relates to your accountability and the accountability of others who held that responsibility.
There was a conversation, I don't know if you saw it, but Matt Hardy, who we know has been with WWE, TNA, AEW, and now he's back in TNA. He was recently quoted about TNA and WWE sort of working together, and if that was an effort to try to hurt AEW. So when that came up on the conversation, here's what that looked like with Tony and Ariel.
Matt and Jeff Hardy on in July, and I asked them, like, what do you make of this WWE TNA partnership? And Matt said to me, like, let's be honest, it's to hurt AEW. Do you view it that way as well? That's the way he put it.
I really like Matt and Jeff a lot. I like Matt and Jeff a lot, and I loved working with them when they were in AEW, and I still love Matt and Jeff very much. If they
and I don't think it was malicious.
I don't think at all. And
but do you think that that's the impetus?
I respect that opinion a lot. I think
you agree with it.
I think it's probably true, and I respect that Matt said it. Honestly,
yeah,
I think that's really cool. And I think Matt's a great guy. I think Jeff's a
what
great
do you
guy.
make of that? The fact that they're so tight now.
It's interesting. I think it's a very interesting collaboration, but I think Matt hit the nail on the head that it makes sense. And AEW is a very strong challenger brand, and it's not that unusual. Like,
you take it as a compliment, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I remember when WCW was starting to do better, and Smoky Mountain Wrestling was running shows in Georgia, that Vince McMahon called up Jim Cornette and sent a bunch of the WWF wrestlers to Smoky Mountain Wrestling to help
history repeating itself,
compete with WCW. So I do think, like, when you have a strong challenger brand, it's not that unusual to see the WWF collaborate with another company. We saw that with Smoky Mountain there, and in Memphis, I think, did some of the same things to compete with WCW shows. So it's not that unusual. And again, I don't take it personally at all. It makes sense looking at the wrestling playbook of the WWF.
Buddy, I heard you say, as he's making the Smoky Mountain comparison, boy, how'd that work out? And of course, we know WCW thumped that head. But listen, I think that's interesting that it feels like he's taking it in a positive way. What say you?
Of course he is, because he's putting himself over, because he's the challenger brand. So the fact that they're having to make these moves to hurt AEW suggests that they look at AEW as a viable challenger brand. That's a beautiful story to tell. It's just got nothing to do with reality. It's cosplay. It's cosplay. Here's why I think WWE is in business with TNA. The sole reason is to mitigate some of the potential that may exist down the road when it comes to monopolizing the business.
Because they're going to,
strategic legal maneuver that had a very specific purpose. And the fact that, TNA is somehow affected, yeah, maybe that's like garnish on the plate for somebody.
Even AEW's affected.
Or AEW. Maybe that's garnish on the plate for WWE. Yeah, by the way, we've achieved this great strategic success by entering into this relationship with TNA. And oh, by the way, yeah, it makes Tony scream. That's kind of fun. But it's not the idea that WWE views AEW as a quote unquote challenger brand is just, it's entertaining. It's entertaining.
It's also entertaining to get his take on the Chris Jericho speculation. We just touched on this a few weeks ago where Jericho went on his podcast and said something along the lines of TNA looked like the second biggest company behind WWE. He's of course talking about their success at Bound for Glory, where they claim they had over 7,000 folks. And he compared that to the way the TV looked for AEW when they ran the ECW arena. And we both sort of agreed here that he's playing chess. He's trying to create a little leverage, get a better deal for himself. But if it was a swerve, bro, for him to come back to AEW, I think you and I both really like that idea. Of course, Jericho came up in this conversation with Ariel. Let's take a listen.
What's the state of Chris Jericho's relationship with the company?
Chris Jericho is somebody who's in AEW and has been with us from the very beginning. He's been away from us for a bit, but he's
since April, right? His last appearance was in April.
Yeah, and he's somebody that's had, even this year, great matches with Bandito, somebody that's been a world champion for us and was really at the very beginning of AEW, absolutely as key and instrumental as any individual in the launch of AEW. And I love Chris personally and professionally. I just reached out and wished him a happy birthday recently. I'm very excited about everything Chris has done in AEW, and he continues to be with us. And, he's always
Is he going to be back?
I can't speak to that, but I love having Chris in AEW, and he's always welcome. The door's always open for Chris to come in.
What is the reason for his departure for now?
It's a very good question, and it's some of it comes down to just working out the dates. And
is his deal almost up?
I would rather not get into that, but also I respect you asking about it, and if I could give as much information as possible to try and keep a very constructive dialogue.
Do you think we'll see him back in AEW?
I hope so. I absolutely hope we'll get Chris back in, and a star like Chris Jericho, you negotiate a certain number of dates, and Chris has always been really great about being one of those wrestlers in AEW that when he's in, he's all the way in. And if you think, he's always really been a full-time part of the show.
Sure.
And at first, when we started, we talked about finding ways with Chris and Fozzy and his band to keep him involved because he was such a central figure as the original AEW World Champion, as Le Champion. So there were times where Chris would have videos in Dynamite or make appearances. Even when he offered John Moxley my dad's car, that was actually my dad's car, to join the Inner Circle in Jacksonville, Chris was actually on his way to the Tokyo Dome, and we had filmed that over the holidays, knowing Chris was going to be going to Japan. So he filmed this video that we played for Mox to watch after the Mox versus Trent match in Jacksonville on New Year's Day. And then Mox himself then left for Japan right after that. But it was Jericho was wrestling Tanahashi and got over early to do media. And that was on the Tokyo Dome in 2020. And it's amazing to think now here we are almost 6 years later. And Chris has been a huge part of AEW from the very beginning. And we started out early like, okay, how can we find ways to, keep Chris involved if he needed a week or two off. And then pretty soon Chris was just here every week and wanted to be here every week. And we love having him. So if we can work out all the dates and all the things, I would always love for him to be here. But he's one of my favorite wrestlers, and certainly he's as instrumental to the launch of AEW as anybody.
He's giving him his flowers in a big way. And of course, people are all speculating that, hey, Jericho's a goner. He's definitely going to WWE. What do you think of the way he handled that question?
I think Chris's financial planner is smiling from ear to ear right now.
I think that's fair to say.
He's negotiating. Chris is always negotiating. We've both known people that are just born salespeople, and it's always be closing. They're always closing something. They can ask you if you wanted a cup of coffee for breakfast, but there's a closing statement in there somewhere, right? Chris is always be negotiating. That's what Chris is doing. And Chris, and it's going to pay off really. It has paid off really well for him. Chris is one of the, Hulk Hogan said it to me, and he probably didn't originate it, but in Hulk Hogan's mind, whenever somebody would ask him, who's the best worker in the history of the business, Hulk would always say, the one that made the most money. And Chris is right up there. So he's doing a great job.
He is doing a great job. I wanted to show you this. I'm sure it's probably been a long time since you've seen it, but it was recently posted to Twitter by our buddy Alan. And it was the handwritten notice that Jericho gave you that he was leaving. Do you want to read that to us, Eric? It's dated July 26, 1999. It's a handwritten letter from Chris Jericho to Eric Bischoff. What's it say there, Eric?
Yeah, it says, I just wanted to express my appreciation to you for giving me the opportunity to work for WCW. I'm having a hard time reading it. I really enjoyed it, and I won't forget the favorable experiences I had within the company. I hope I have the pleasure of working with you again in the future. All the best, Chris Jericho. I really appreciated that. Chris is a genuine guy, and he made the move he had to make. He was determined. He knew when he got to WCW that it was a stepping stone to WWE, and he knew he had leverage. He was ready, and he lost all his patience. He wanted to go. He wanted to be in the main event, and he made the move, and I couldn't respect him more for doing it.
Well, I'll tell you what, somebody in your life will respect the present you give them. If they're a handgun owner, I mean, here's the reality. If you own a handgun for self-defense, or you know someone who does, well, the storage likely fits into one of two pretty frustrating categories. It's either locked away, meaning it's safe but out of reach in case of an emergency, or it's unsecured, which means we're leaving it vulnerable to anyone. Well, Stopbox USA saw the problem and designed a groundbreaking solution. We're calling it the Stopbox Pro. With the Stopbox Pro, you never have to choose between security and readiness again. Its ingenious push-button locking system gives you fast, reliable access when every second matters without the hassle of keys or reliance on batteries. We're talking 100% mechanical, so it works every time, no power needed. And with Stopbox USA, you finally have both security and readiness. The Stopbox Pro's mechanical keyless system allows for fast, secure access without the risk of fumbling for keys when every second counts. It's also battery free, so you never have to worry about your lock not working. And with the holidays coming up, there's never been a better time to upgrade your home security or give the peace of mind to someone you truly care about. Whether it's for your own nightstand or a loved one who takes safety seriously, the Stopbox Pro delivers the perfect balance of both protection and preparedness. The holidays just got a little safer and a whole lot more affordable. Right now, for a limited time, our listeners are getting a crazy deal. Not only do you get 10% off your entire order when you use the code 83weeks10 at stopboxusa.com, but they're also giving you a buy one, get one free with their Stopbox Pro. That's right, 10% off and a free Stopbox Pro when you use the code 83weeks10 at stopboxusa.com. Eric, we had so many questions that continue to pour in after last week's fabulous Ask Eric Anything. I thought, hey, let's do a few more. We've got a question here from Lopez, who wants to know, what is your most prized non-wrestling accomplishment or honor you've received in the field of broadcasting? Is there anything you're particularly proud of in broadcasting that you've done in television outside of wrestling? Is there one thing you'd say, I'm pretty proud of that?
Not in terms of an award. I mean, I'm pretty proud of the success that Jason Hurry and I had as an independent television production company in Hollywood during a period of time, talking about early 2000s to about 2015, which was really the heyday for non-scripted entertainment, reality type shows. And we became one of probably the top 4, 5, 6 independently owned production companies in Hollywood. You know, we produced television created like on a bar napkin. It started often in a bar, but we'd create ideas, we'd develop those ideas, we'd present those ideas to networks, we'd sell those ideas to networks, and then we would actually physically produce the shows and deliver them. So we were a real turnkey studio in that respect. And I'm proud of that because it was a very competitive business and we had a lot of success in it, made a lot of money doing it, made more money doing that than I ever made in professional wrestling, to be honest. So I'm proud of that, but I never got any awards for it. You know, you don't get a lot of awards for reality television.
Brandon Crabb says, when you were looking to purchase WCW circa 2001, was there any valuation provided as to the approximate worth of the tape library? As badly as Vince and company botched the invasion storyline, that footage alone would have repaid the company's purchase price many times over. Now that's 2001, but we know who was involved, and what they had done with the classic sports footage. Was there a valuation done that you recall at all about the tape library of WCW?
I'm sure there was a valuation based on the current market value of that library at that time.
Right.
Because it wasn't like videotape libraries weren't worth anything. There was a lot of money being made. Coliseum Home Video made a lot of money. So there was an established market for wrestling videotape content. No one could have ever predicted that the market would be what it is today, because no one in 2001 could have predicted OTT platforms and streaming platforms and all of the things that have come with it in the last 20 years. So given that nobody could have possibly predicted that scenario, that market, you couldn't have put a valuation on that library reflecting that potential, right? So yeah, there was a valuation, but it was a smaller valuation based on what the market segment was worth at that time.
Mark LaBelle says, Eric, you mentioned before that you wrote Scott Hall's debut promo. Are there any others that came from you? Do you remember writing any other promos or giving inspiration, rather, where you remember it so fondly?
Hulk Hogan's NWO turn.
Yeah.
In a janitor's closet 20 minutes before he went out to do it. So yeah, that one. But honestly, there were so many. I did so many. I was involved in so many, especially with Hulk, especially with the NWO. I would either have a large part in the process or a small part in the process or a medium-sized part in the process. It just all depends. But my fingerprints were all over a lot of it. None of it stands out other than the Hogan heel turn and obviously Scott Hall's, because I remember sitting there actually writing it down because I had to give it to Scott. Scott was going to be in a different part of the building. I had to put it on a piece of paper, have Doug Dillinger get it over to him so he had something to work off of. Otherwise, it would have been verbal. Most of my direction was all just walking through it with the talent, rehearsing it together. I'll play your role, you play my role, get familiar with it. Very little of it was actually scripted.
Another great question here. Coach Rosie wants to know, I really like the way the lighting was done during the Nitro era. After reading the Nitro book, I learned about Jeff Bornstein. What can the wrestling industry learn from Bornstein's lighting techniques? That's a great question, because I was just watching wrestling with my buddy Bart from the Meat Mart down in South. And we were watching Dynamite, and I said, I just love the way this show is lit compared to WWE. And I always go back to something you said a few years ago, that WWE at times looks almost too polished. And you made the comparison to Disney on Ice. Mm-hmm. I think Nitro and the way it's lit, certainly AEW has tried to use some of that because it does feel a little grittier. Tell us about Bornstein and his lighting and what made it so special.
It was different. That's one of the things, the hallmark of everything that I did starting in 95 with Nitro was to be different than WWE. Lighting was a big part of that. When I sat down with David Crockett and said, okay, I want the venue to look and feel different. Well, what do you want it to look and feel like, Eric? I want it to look like I'm at a party. I want the viewer at home. And I tell this to our staff at Real American Freestyle all the time, including our production team. I want the viewer at home to feel like they're watching a party that they wish they would have gone to. That's what I want it to feel like. Yes, the wrestling's got to be good. Yes, in the case of professional wrestling, the promos have got to be right. The finish, all that stuff has got to be right. But the feeling, the connectivity between the viewer and the television screen needs to be, damn, I wish I was there. And if you can create that connection, however you create it, you win as a producer, right? And Bornstein brought a different type of lighting. The other thing I wanted the viewer to feel is if they were in the building so they could almost smell the stale beer and the stale popcorn. So I wanted the grit. I wanted the light to be a little harsher and not blend as much in the crowd. I wanted shadows where appropriate. I wanted light that was a little hotter than you would typically see in certain parts of the arena. But in totality, you felt like you were actually there. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't like you were watching wrestling on a movie screen in surround sound. You felt like you were in the $30 seats with a warm beer and a box of popcorn. And Jeff's lighting helped achieve that.
Great question. We really appreciate all these great questions. Drop them below. We'll try to hit some more of your Ask Eric questions in the comments. Let us know here at 83weeks.com. Want to put you on game too. I'm talking about Harry's Plus. Maybe you're already a Harry's man. John in my office has been a Harry's man long before I even knew him. But it turns out Harry's has spent 10 years developing their most advanced razor yet. That's right. They spent an entire decade of R&D to create the smoothest possible shave. And this is their biggest launch in the history of their company. I'm talking about Harry's Plus. If you're looking for an incredibly advanced shave and still want to pay less than the other premium brands, buddy, Harry's Plus is for you. They've got an advanced pivoting system to make sure reaching all the corners of your face is even easier. They've got a refined blade technology for an even closer, more comfortable shave. The blade spacing is optimized to glide smoothly and avoid clogging. They've got a weighted metal handle. It's the heaviest handle yet for more control. And with Harry's, you get barbershop quality shaves with German engineer blades. Each blade is honed at 3 different angles to cut hair cleanly at the root without tugging. And even after all this innovation, Harry's Plus still costs less than the Gillette Fusion. We're talking a premium shave without the premium markup. And by the way, I should mention Harry's Plus has a risk-free trial. Here's how it works. If you don't love your shave, Harry's will make it right. No questions asked. That's right. A risk-free trial means there's zero downside to giving it a shot. And Harry's has a lot more than just razors. Think of it as the centerpiece of your full grooming lineup, from shave gel to body wash, and everything is designed with that same attention to detail. But most importantly, it's delivered straight to your door from Harry's own factory to your bathroom. So they're able to do this with no middlemen, no markups, just premium gear on your schedule. And right now, for a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/83weeks. This set will include the all new Harry's Plus razor, 1 refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head on over to harrys.com/83weeks to claim this offer. And after you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Eric, we're rounding the bases here. We've got a big pay-per-view weekend for AEW this weekend. Next weekend, it's Survivor Series, but more importantly, Real American Freestyle #3. Tickets are on sale now at realamericanfreestyle.com. You can also make plans to join us on the Fox Nation app. This is the most loaded card in Real American Freestyle history. It's primetime football. It's a big weekend. I can't wait, Eric, but we're going to do it again next week. We are going to be here next Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, even if it means we have to tape on the road. Isn't that right, Eric?
That's a fact. But speaking of on the road, I got to get on it.
We'll see you next week right here on 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff. All right, real quick, I want to remind everybody, especially this time of year, did you know at SaveWithConrad.com you can skip your next 2 house payments? That's right. You'll get a cheaper monthly payment and no payments until next year. How about a little Christmas vacation from house payments? That's right. No payments in November or December at SaveWithConrad.com.